just so we all. So a very, very warm welcome to everybody who is joining us here today for the Boots Online Doctor Live Well Live webinar. We're going to be talking all about what to eat today because it's such an important, fundamental aspect of health and weight loss. So we're just going to be sharing some slides in a minute with you. Just for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Ruth Taylor. I'm the nutritionist with the Boots Online Doctor service and also a registered nurse. And we love being with you on these Monday lunchtime webinars. We will be with you all through December and into January as well. We're not going to be missing any days, so hopefully you'll be able to join as many as you're able to. So just to remind everyone who's not been here before, if you do have questions, do pop them straight into the Q&A box. You will find that by looking on the bottom of your black control bar. If for any reason you're unable to find the Q&A box, please pop them into the chat box. Do say hello. Do let us know how you're getting on. We love hearing from you. If you have any very complex medical questions that don't sit safely within the webinar, we will redirect you. But please ask away and we'll just give you some advice as to whether we can help you today or whether we would rather redirect you to your medical provider. So what have we done? Have I skipped a slide? I think I have. Sanam. We're very happy to be joined today by Sanam. So please do say hello, Sanam, and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Ruth. So I'm Sanam. I'm a pharmacist independent prescriber. So I work here at Boots Online Doctors, but I'm also the weight loss service lead for our weight loss service. I'm really excited to be here just to hear, a bit sort of questions that you have around your diets and also give you a little bit of information to help you on your weight loss journey. So really excited. Thank you, Ruth.
Thanks, Anna. We're really thrilled to have you here. I know we've been asking you to, well, hoping you've been joining us for a while. And we're also joined so much, thanks, Gareth, is here helping us today as well. So he'll be sharing any links or resources and helping us hopefully with any technical problems. So we're going to start, as always, by asking how things have been with you over the last week or so. Last week we were talking all about protein and the importance of, and also talking through how to get the best from your GLP-1s. So I'd love to hear from you. Has anything gone well for you over the last week? Have you had any wins? Are you finding it really tricky? We would love to know. We'd love to hear from you. So please do let us know. Please pop a comment in the chat box or give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or, if there's nothing to say, we will move on. Gareth, we're going to ask a couple of polls while people are thinking about this. So we've got a couple of polls we're going to share with you now. We'll just start with one to begin with. So we'd love to know what phase of your weight loss journey you are on. So please let us know. Just to remind anyone who's not been here before, or just as a reminder, these are completely anonymous. It just gets a sense of perspective for us in terms of we know who's here, what phase of your weight loss journey you're on, and that's really helpful for us because we need to make sure that whatever advice we give is relevant and appropriate for you. We want this to be as helpful to you as possible. So that's really helpful. I can see that from those of you that have answered, we've got quite an even split between those of you who are just starting out and those who are midway through, and a smaller number of people who are on your maintenance journey. So we'll try and make this all very relevant to you. And please do get the best out of this webinar for yourselves. If you just want to listen in, that's fine. If you have questions, that's also fine. So thank you for taking a moment to do that. And we're now going to share our second poll, which is just to find out what you're maybe finding more complicated for yourselves at the moment. So Gareth, if you don't mind sharing that second poll. So what's going on for you? What's the trickiest thing that you're finding at the moment? Is it your hunger, cravings, meal planning? What's going on for you? We're always fascinated to know. We want to support you on your journeys. And this sort of information helps us understand perhaps how this webinar today may be helpful to you, what we can add in terms of what we're telling you to really help with the sort of symptoms or the issues that you're most experiencing. So I can see of the people who've replied to the poll, who've taken part in the poll, menu planning or meal planning is actually really tricky. So we've got a couple of resources we can share with you, which we'll do in a minute. So thank you for letting us know. Consistency for some of you, and that evening snacking, it's amazing how it just creeps in, isn't it? It's mind over matter. Is that habit? Is that the naughty monkey sitting on your shoulder? What's going on for you? What's happening with that evening snacking? Tell us more if you want to share in the chat box because it would be really helpful for us to understand. And maybe then we can think about how we can support you, some suggestions that we might have for you. That's really helpful. Thanks for letting us know. So really the evening snacking, the meal planning consistency, and a little bit around cravings and hunger. So that hopefully will pick up on most of those in today's webinar. But if we miss anything or if you have any more questions, then don't hesitate to let us know. That's what we're here for. I'm going to pick up, I can see some great comments in the chat box, so we'll pick up on those as well. Um, but yeah, so Deborah, you're saying you're finding it really difficult to want to eat and eating the right thing when my appetite is suppressed. Lynette, you're saying you're a sweet tooth with an emotion and a little bit of an emotional eater. Okay, we'll pick up on those. If we don't answer your questions, do come back and tell us more, ask some more direct questions. But let us get on with the information side of things. If you've not been to this webinar before, this is a foundational webinar in terms of really where we want you to be thinking in terms of how to eat, the what to eat, and all of those things, because actually it's really fundamentally important to set out on this weight loss journey in terms of really thinking about how you want your body composition to be for you. And actually, how we eat really makes a huge difference to our body composition in the long run, but also makes a difference to our energy on the journey. So, this is crucial. So, we're looking at this slide here, which is talking all about our blood sugar balance and how it impacts our eating habits, but it also impacts our energy, it impacts how we feel on a day-to-day basis. And it really just can make a difference to cravings. So, if you're somebody who's perhaps snacking more in the evening or having more cravings, this might be really relevant to you. So, if you can see on the right side of the chart, this sort of is where we have some less stable blood glucose. This is the area we want to be avoiding as much as possible. And we can make a huge difference to this by how we eat, when we eat, and what we eat. So on this side, you'll find that your blood sugar is going up and down. And in terms of your blood sugars going up and down, you might not feel that effect physiologically, but what you may feel is the hunger cravings, the pangs of hunger, some elements of stress or anxiety, or just some cravings, or maybe your mood changes. You notice your mood is deflating. You might notice you're getting a bit of a headache quite regularly on and off through the day. You might just feel a bit cranky. So we want to avoid being in this red side of the chart. We tend to find people who are over on this side of the chart are eating in a way where their blood sugars aren't supported. Perhaps they're eating a little bit too much of those high glycemic foods, the sugars, the foods that release their sugars very quickly. So we want to be avoiding high glycemic foods. We want to reduce the amount of insulin that our body has to produce. Every time we eat, we produce a little bit of insulin, and the more sugary or the higher carbohydrate the food, so like sort of like easily processed foods in our bodies, the white goods, maybe the more processed white breads, the less sort of dense whole grains are absorbed so much more quickly. So we'll have a rapid rise in our blood glucose followed by a crash. And we want to avoid that crash as much as possible because that's when we start feeling hungry, we get those cravings, we get the sort of real urge to eat something else. So we want to steady our blood sugars out. We also, if we follow this pattern regularly and routinely every day in and out, we're going to be at greater risk of having insulin resistance over time. This sort of pattern can lead to insulin resistance, and that will then lead you at a greater risk of type 2 diabetes. And also, if we're following this curve all of the time, the wriggly line, then we are going to find it much more challenging to lose weight and keep that weight off in the long term. So what we want you to be focusing on, and I hope this is making sense, is to be looking over on that green chart side. We want you to be eating in a way whereby you're balancing your blood sugars. So we're going to talk you through how you do that in a really simple step-by-step approach to thinking about this. We've got meal plans that we're going to share with you that may help you think about that, or the meal builders. So if you're eating over on the green side, you'll be eating those sort of whole grains, you'll be eating lower glycemic foods, you'll be putting in regular protein. And what happens here is that you will get a much more balanced blood sugar management. You'll be producing insulin less often, you'll be having less spikes in your blood glucose, you'll be having less crashes. And in time, if you follow this pattern for a few weeks, you will notice your energy starts to level out, your cravings start to reduce, your energy will come into a better sort of consistent phase. And that can really help in terms of being a little bit more mindful, because when this happens, it gives us that breathing space to actually think about the food that we want to eat, what we want to put on our plate, and we'll not be reaching for food in such a sort of level of urgency. Everything becomes a little bit calmer. So foods that we might want you to be thinking about, maybe if you're eating some white toast at the moment, maybe swap to some wholemeal bread. Think about putting a nut butter on there, like an almond butter, or combining it with eggs, or even just some nuts and some sort of like a nice apple or some celery. All of these things can make all the difference. So let's have a talk through what this means like. So Sanan, you're going to talk about the basic principles of our core eating plan. And Gareth, if you could share the resources, that would be great. So we want the core eating plan and the GLP-1 eating plan.
Yeah,
Sam.
so with Gareth will share those resources as well. So we really do recommend that you start by downloading the Boots Online Doctor Core Meal Plan. This will have lots of information on what sort of types of foods you can eat, outline sort of which foods we're talking about when we're talking about proteins and fruits and healthy fats and stuff. It provides a focus on sort of real foods as well, and give you a bit of an idea on sort of portion sizes as well. And that meal builder again will help you build up your sort of meals that you can start planning on how to eat. So what we want you to do using this core meal plan is sort of adapt around your preferred eating style. So as you'd want, you want it to look like sort of foods that you're going to eat. So not a very prescriptive diet that, somebody's told you to eat, but you want to sort of adapt it into foods that you'd see yourself eating on a diet, but maybe replace some of what you're already eating with some of the things on our list so that you can gradually sort of change over to a different way of eating. So the emphasis is on real foods. So we'll sort of discuss that in more detail, what we mean by sort of real foods. But our diet does focus on that, the meal plan does. And it's not designed to be overly restrictive. So, we don't want you to be hungry all the time. The aim is to eat 2 to 3 meals a day, and to reduce that snacking that, a few of you have mentioned already, especially sort of the midnight snacking and, the late night snacking, and maybe even replace some of those snacks with alternatives. So not just, it might be just snacking on the wrong things. So if you do crave a snack, a good idea normally I'd suggest is move away anything that's unhealthy snacks, so they're sort of out of sight. So when you do feel like a snack, you're more likely to go to those foods that you have, which are a little bit healthier, maybe sort of the foods that you should be eating as a snack, as opposed to those sort of like high sugary foods and those sort of spoken about already. So start by making a plan. So all of the information in our webinar series are all important factors to consider, that can help you achieve a successful and sustainable weight loss goals and stuff, because what we want you to do is actually sustain that weight loss and not just lose it quickly, but sort of keep it off and actually make it more of a lifestyle as opposed to just sort of like a quick win or a quick fix. One factor which we have considered when we've done this core meal plan is feeding that biome. So we've got loads of sort of research now is suggesting that healthy gut microbiome can assist with weight loss. So the foods that we will discuss as part of the core meal plan will help with that gut microbiome and your sort of overall health as well. So it's important to see any changes that we are making sort of like a long-term plan rather than short-term fix, as mentioned before. If you fail to plan, you are less likely to succeed. So we want to optimize your chances of that sustainable weight loss. And we understand that it's going to take time to establish these changes, and it won't be simple, and it will require lots of motivation. And we are here to help support you on those rainy day moments. It might take a little bit of experimenting with new foods to get you into sort of like the swing of like, what type of foods you should be eating and getting a sensible sort of plan in place. And that is expected. So don't be disheartened if you don't get the perfect plan straight away. It might just be a bit of a balance and you might want to experiment with different foods. So try a lot of, we've got the meal builders. You can try lots of different ingredients on there to try and see what, the best plan for you is going to be. And it's important that the weight loss is slow and steady. That will give you a positive impact on your metabolism and help you with those energy levels. So today we're going to talk about the core meal plan and we're going to kick it off by starting to talk about one of the core components, protein. So protein in itself is vital to our cellular health and it's a part of every cell and also involved with lots of reactions in our body. So meeting your protein requirements is a key element to a healthy eating plan. It will also help with satiety, so making you feel fuller, and also muscle strength, which both help with weight loss. So the more muscle you have, the more energy it requires to maintain that muscle. So in essence, you are burning off more calories. Protein in itself does take more energy to digest and sort of break down in your body than carbohydrates and fats as well. So again, you're using more energy in your body to sort of process that protein. So it really helps to keep that energy balance that we talked about because you need to keep your blood sugar levels stable. So protein does really help with that. So having a good portion of protein with each meal really supports a blood sugar balance. So high dietary protein is found to support insulin sensitivity, uh, just to help manage that blood sugar balance again. Now, what we recommend is that you eat 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So split that across 3 meals. So, for example, I'll do an easy number. If you weighed 100 kilograms, you'd want to split that 100 kilograms of, 100 grams, not 100 kilograms of protein. So 100 grams. So if you weighed 100 kilograms, you'd need around about 100 grams of protein. So we advise that you sort of split that across 3 meals. It doesn't have to be exact, but it'd be around about 33 grams of protein per meal. You can balance it, a bit of give and take, but trying to keep that even balanced throughout the day so you can keep the sugar levels stable and stuff as well. So some good examples of healthier proteins, if you're a meat eater, would be chicken, turkey, Greek yogurt. Options for vegans and vegetarians would be to focus on quinoa, tofu, beans, lentils, edamame beans. And variety is key, so you don't have to stick to the same protein. So if you are a meat eater, you can, and we do actually advise that you probably try those vegetarian protein options as well. So it's not just all about sticking to that one chicken every day, all day. That would become very boring. I probably won't be able to maintain that and keep to that anyway. So just, add a bit of variety, but just get that protein in and just change it throughout the week and throughout the day. So you've got something different to eat and keeps it a little bit interesting. Okay.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. I think it's really important. So I wanted to mention fats. This is an area that I can see there's lots of comments as well in the chat box. So we will pick up on those and come back to anyone who has asked us some questions there. So don't worry. But fats are something that we find really tricky, or many people find really tricky in our society. We've had years really of people thinking that eating a low fat diet is the way that we should all go. But actually, the research doesn't really stack up. And in fact, when we started cutting fats out of our food, the manufacturers started adding more sugar into the food to make it tastier, not healthier, obviously, but tastier and to satisfy our palates. But actually, what you can see is there's almost a linear relationship to when that happened in terms of the manufacturing changes and the rise in sort of society level of obesity and being overweight. We also know that fats are really important, and there are certain fats, like the essential fats, that we can't make in our body. So if we don't eat them, we don't have them. So really important for us to be thinking, where are those essential fats coming from? Am I getting them in my diet? Am I making sure I'm eating them every day? So they can be found in things like, for meat eaters, it would be oily fish are a great source of omega-3. You want to be going for the non-farmed variety. Unfortunately, the research is suggesting that the farmed variety of oily fish are really not containing those levels of healthy fats, the omega-3 fats. So we want to be thinking non-farmed, so things like salmon, sardines, trout, herring, mackerel. But also for people, we can be thinking about nuts and seeds and their oils, and also polyunsaturated fats we can get from the avocados. So those are all our lovely healthy fats. They help with cellular communication. So it helps for our messages to get in and out of cells, for our cells to be able to take on board hormones and to be able to absorb nutrients. Really important elements. Also, we find from a nutritional point of view that eating a good amount of healthy unsaturated, polyunsaturated, and omega fats can be really helpful at reducing inflammation in our body. So, if we're experiencing a lot of inflammation or pain, that can be something that can really make a difference. And the research has also found that these foods can be really beneficial in terms of heart disease and certain cancers. So, if you're in that situation, you may want to be considering something like the Mediterranean diet. There's a lot of research that the Mediterranean diet for most of us is a really, really helpful way to go. And so when we created our core meal plan, we created it around thinking about the key elements of a Mediterranean diet combined with a low glycemic approach to eating. So it's sort of really set up to help you with your long-term health. So I hope that's helpful. And we're going to talk a little bit about vegetables. So vegetables, why we encourage you to eat vegetables is they are sort of the powerhouses behind bringing in those micronutrients, all of the vitamins, the minerals that actually really are essential to our health. We are just a chemical network of communication in our bodies, and those micronutrients from these vegetables and fruits are really helpful for just bringing in those added layers of helping our bodies work effectively. From a weight loss point of view, really filling up on fiber-rich foods can be really helpful if you're struggling to really feel a sense of feeling satisfied after a meal, or if you're constantly hungry. We know sort of bringing in the fiber from vegetables can be helpful for that. And if you're struggling with constipation, bringing in lots of fiber can also be helpful. If you're new to bringing in lots of fiber, we recommend that you pair that with increasing your hydration as well, because otherwise it could be that you'll find that a little bit tricky. And I noticed there was a question that related to this in the chat box, which was in my head a second ago, but it's completely lost now. So I will come back to that question in a minute. The foods that you want to be thinking about are those colourful vegetables, the colourful fruits, and really thinking about the lower sugar options. So that's why the colourful ones are great. The sort of actually the potatoes, the starch-rich fruits and vegetables, they are going to be higher in terms of that glycemic load. So they are going to be the ones that we want to be thinking about eating less of, like the potatoes and parsnips at this time of year are very popular. I know what the question was. Somebody asked how many pieces of fruit a day. We would recommend 2 or 3 pieces of fruit a day, and I always recommend having that as your sweet treat at the end of a meal, combining it there as much as possible. And if you're really somebody who loves to snack, then maybe having some fruit as a snack with some nuts or some nut butter can be really helpful way to just balance. Think about your snacks as almost being like little mini meals. You want to bring that balance to your plate, even with the snack as well. So hope that helps. And we will now move on to look at whole grains.
Brilliant. So whole grains, they're very, vital as part of healthy and nutritious diet. So nutritious is a key element of that as well. What people tend to forget sometimes actually with the whole grains, there's actually lots of nutrients in those grains. So it's not just about the fiber or the starchy content or anything. So there's lots of nutrition within those grains. When you get refined grains, so things like white rice, what you find that they strip the sort of nutritious parts of that, plant or the seeds, the grains themselves, and you're left with sort of more of a starchy inside with white rice, for example. So that's why whole grains are really important. You get the full nutritional benefits of those grains, and there's more to it than just the starch that you get from there. So grains are the seeds of grass-like plants, for example, wheat, rice, and corn. So when you shop, what you want to see is the words whole grain or 100% whole flour as the first ingredient. And that will sort of indicate to you that actually that is the whole grain and that's more nutritious. They do provide us with fiber, like I said, with white rice, that outer layer is stripped. So no fiber, the fiber layer is gone on those ones. So what you'd want to do is eat more maybe brown rice. Then you've got vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients like iron, magnesium, selenium, B vitamins. So that's what you're going to get from those whole grains. And as well as being a vital source of slow release energy for our cells and day-to-day energy, whole grain foods can also help you regulate your cholesterol levels and blood pressure. Eating these regularly can help reduce the risk of diabetes and heart disease. So if I give you a few examples of whole grains, so we've got oats, which have got beta glucans, which are thought, help reduce the cholesterol levels. I've got wheat, rye, quinoa, bulgur, barley, and brown rice. So what we want to do is encourage you to keep the starchy carbohydrates low. So that's like the potato, white rice, pasta, cereals, and including small amounts of the previously mentioned slow releasing grains into the diet. So what we're talking of is sort of like 1 cup with a main meal, and that will help complement, what we've discussed before. So you've got your proteins, your healthy fats, your vegetables, and now you've got your grains. So you can see how the plate is now coming together to sort of form like quite a nice meal there and quite nutritious meal. So I
Yeah.
think that.
I noticed somebody's asked about porridge oats, whether we would recommend those. So generally, some of the oats you will find, you can get whole rolled oats. So we'd probably recommend those in preference, just because they're again whole. Quite often you'll find that the porridge oats are a little bit split down. They've had that sort of husk removed. So therefore, when you cook them, they're going to be really easy to absorb into your blood sugar. So your body is going to find the whole thing will just be very digestible, very quickly absorbed sugars. So again, it's a carbohydrate, so it is going to have an impact on your blood sugar. If you team that with some protein for some milk or some yogurt or some nut butter, then that would have a more satiating and lower that impact on your blood sugar. So have a think about that, because it's sort of really important to just understand how these things hang out in our bodies once we've eaten them. I think it really helps. And hydration, it's so often overlooked in weight loss, but it's such an important aspect. There's a lot of really interesting research about the benefit of hydration in terms of helping with the breakdown of fat. And if we're underhydrated or dehydrated, we may find it more difficult to actually break down fat stores. So this is really important. But also a little bit more thinking around hydration is that it can actually help with insulin sensitivity. So as a rule of thumb, we would recommend most people to be drinking around 1.5 to 2 litres of water a day to stay really well hydrated. To use your urine as a barometer, you want your urine to be that pale straw colour as much as possible. And of course, if you've been given a sort of a restriction on how much fluid that you should drink, then really stick with your restriction, work with your GP or your consultant around that. So this is the basic requirement for everybody, unless you've been given a restriction. Herbal and fruit teas will count towards that alternative. And there's also something that's come new on the market in the last year or so called water drops, which we've had a look at. We've got no buy-in with those at all, but actually they seem to be quite a nice way of flavouring water without bringing in all the chemicals. So those also worth considering. And Gareth, I think you've got a link for those. Things like kombucha and kefir can also be really interesting to try and bring something different. Also, just be careful if you're somebody who doesn't drink very much and you're suddenly going to be thinking, okay, I'm going to really work on my hydration, don't go from zero to hero. It can really affect your electrolytes. So you really want to be thinking about bringing that level of water that you drink up over a couple of weeks so that you really don't make yourself feel unwell. If you get your electrolytes out of balance, it can make you feel really poorly. So I hope that makes sense. Anything you want to add on that, Sanam?
No, I think, hydration, like you mentioned, is really overlooked. And I think just that with your energy levels as well, and also helping sort of digest a lot of your foods and side effects that you might get if you are on medications, is all really key to sort of that successful weight loss.
Actually, one paper I read recently suggested 500 mils with each meal um, really could make a difference to weight loss. So that might be something to really consider trying. And we just wanted to bring in something around maintenance, because we know that we have a few people now beginning to join us who are in that fortunate position of being well done to you, getting to that maintenance stage of your weight loss journey. So really everything we've talked about today is really relevant to you. it isn't about starting afresh. It's about maintaining all of the sort of beneficial new habits, hopefully, that you've gathered over the past few months. We want you to keep it as simple as possible. So use those core meal plans. Bring in those 2 or 3 balanced meals a day. Make sure you've got that protein there because it's really important to maintain that muscle mass and to help with keeping you feeling satisfied. Hydration remains just as important for you as it does for anybody on a weight loss journey. And also, don't forget to bring in those strength building exercises. So, the muscle building exercises, some resistance of some description. You can do that at home very inexpensively. You don't have to join a gym. And the Boots Online Doctor have created a whole series of exercises for anybody on a weight loss journey or anybody who's interested in the health. And this is incredibly relevant also to people in maintenance. So, Gareth, if you could share the link for the exercise videos, that would be really great. We haven't gone into ultra processed foods that much today, but I think our general rule of thumb is to avoid them as much as possible. I think in today's society, they are going to generally fit in our cupboards somewhere, but just think about what you can make from scratch easily as much as possible. We have to be realistic. We all have incredibly busy lives. So maybe just look at your week as a whole and just think, okay, these are my really tricky days. They're the days I'm going to rely on something that's perhaps pre-cooked or that I've got a leftover meal I can grab out the freezer if you're very organized. Um, and otherwise, try and do from scratch on the days you've got that little bit more time. I think we have to be kind to ourselves in all of this, don't we? When you agree, Sanam?
Yeah, I think it's quite easy to be harsh that, especially when you're really busy and it's about balancing what you can make and maybe finding quicker recipes on the busier days and maybe on the weekends you can cook something a little bit longer if you wish. I think there was a question on there as well regarding overnight oats. I mean, they're quite good actually, sort of like a breakfast to have because you can prep it quickly the night before. And yeah, if you just use whole rolled oats or something and soak those overnight, the only key thing is to watch with some of the recipes, what sugar content they're putting in there and, if there's any added if it's sort of like fruits and stuff, that's fine. Incorporate that into the core meal plan and that into your daily sort of fruit allowance in the day. So it's really important you use what you have in the core meal plan. You can use those ingredients and overnight oats are fine. They're actually quite a good idea, I would say, for good
I'd
breakfast
say
ideas.
add some berries, add some
Yeah,
yogurt, add some nuts,
nuts, seeds.
maybe some seeds, a little bit of cocoa powder, vanilla essence if you've got that sweet tooth, or some cinnamon. They can be a really, and also the thing I like about them is they're sort of like slightly pre-digested, so they're slightly easier on our digestive systems too. So they can really work.
And
So,
also there was a few questions I think on protein.
Anna, do you want to
Protein.
just do the catch up of what
Oh
people
yes,
with that think about this week, and then we will
oh brilliant. Okay, so I think it's a roundup. So obviously eat to balance your blood sugars, which you've mentioned quite a few times. So we just want to make sure that whatever you're eating helps stop those spikes and helps keep you full and stops you feeling hungry by balancing those blood sugars. So we've got a quick poll. So if you drop in sort of the poll, what's one small change you might try after today's session?
brilliant. Okay, and just to remind you where we're going to be over the next couple of weeks, we are going to be here every Monday in December. We're going to be looking at um, goodness. So next week we're going to be thinking about actually, I think, the psychology around food and why we eat. I don't know why we've got the Thrive one on there. Put that I created this, so apologies, that's all wrong. We're going to be the psychology of weight loss next week, and then we're going to be talking about thriving in the festive season at the end of December. So apologies for any confusion. Um, Interesting pulse. I can see lots of things going on here. Protein is the number one thing people are going to be focusing on at every meals. So thank you for taking part in the poll and cutting down on packaged foods. Love that. Increasing water. Love that. Um, good to know what you're going to be doing. Stopping eating after dinner. Yeah, there's a few of you perhaps who I think that might be a good thing to be focusing on. We'll check in with you next week and see how you get on. We're going to come to your Q questions now. So there we go. How you doing, Sanam?
Yes, I think I jumped ahead a bit there.
We're all good. Okay, so we are going to come to your questions. I was struggling to find them. So I'm going to go into the Q&A box to begin with, and then we'll come out and check what's in the chat. So Gareth, if you don't mind putting together what's in the chat for us, we'll find then hopefully we won't lose anything that people are asking. Um, okay, so somebody's saying that they're finding it difficult with weight loss not coming off so easily. They've been taking a weight loss injection for 20 weeks, but finding it more difficult this month. Does this happen? I guess it's reassurance, wanting to know what's going on there.
Hmm. I think with weight loss journeys, you will get those slumps and you might feel a little bit hungry. That's just your body trying to battle the weight loss. So you might get that. And that's where this diet and what you eat becomes really important. And you have to be able to sustain that. And you will get sort of difficult moments where the GLP, if you are on GLPs or if you're on medications, that might sort of, that hunger feeling, you might need to either adjust your dose, or it could be that's your natural body response to actually you losing that weight. So it's going to make you hungry because your body's saying, no, gain that weight. And, that's making you feel more hungry. So just try and stick through those periods and maybe adjust your diet and see what can make you feel a bit fuller and stop those cravings and increasing again that water intake, that hydration all helps, protein intake and really the grains that you're eating, it all in all will help with that. I
Yeah,
don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Ruth, yeah.
no, I think you're right. I think we know that people hit a weight loss plateau. We also know in those plateaus when things are, the weight's not perhaps coming off so easily, we're having a little bit of a moment where you're not really losing weight, but you're maintaining your weight. That you might find that you lose centimeters. So instead of focusing on the scales, which can be a little bit demoralizing, focus on other factors like how good are you feeling? Maybe remind yourself where you were at the beginning of the journey and where you've got to now, and just really just celebrate the success of what you've achieved so far. I think we can derail ourselves when things stop moving forwards. We can almost see that as a failure. And it isn't. It's actually just your body catching up and ready to take the next step in that weight loss journey. So, yeah, don't be overwhelmed by it. It is very normal and natural. So somebody's saying that they don't enjoy eating most proteins, eat lots of whole grain carbs, fruit and veg, healthy fats, but find it hard to lose weight on those foods. If required to eat more proteins, I'd rather eat nothing than eat proteins. That's so honest. I love it. Thank you for your honesty. I reckon that perhaps it's time to find one or two proteins as a starting place that you can grapple with and that you can cope with. Maybe you haven't tried all of the variety that there are. Perhaps for you, protein has always been difficult to process for whatever reason. You don't enjoy the flavor, you don't enjoy the texture. Maybe think about beans and lentils and whether they might come in for you here. Maybe think about if you're really desperate and you can't manage, somebody's asking about protein powders. Protein powders have a place. They're not what we would recommend you have all of the time. But if you're really struggling, then there are some protein powders out there that perhaps can step in this situation for you. Because actually we know that protein is probably there are many important aspects of a healthy diet, but for weight loss and muscle mass, protein is king, I would say. So I really find that people who lose weight without that protein, they're going to be at much greater risk of their body composition not sort of being a really healthy body composition, and they're going to be at greater risk of regaining that weight. This is such an important step in terms of that insulin sensitivity, the muscle mass, and really just satiety and energy. That is so important. Have a look at our handout in terms of the different proteins that you could consider and see if there's any that you could highlight on that and just see if there's something that you can bring in and give a go and be brave. It's really tricky, and changing our palate and what we enjoy eating can be very difficult. So, Sana, do you agree
Yeah,
with?
I think I echo what Ruth said. I think with the proteins, like if there's no protein, then protein powders would have their place. But generally, you can get your protein content from the foods you mentioned, your daily protein requirements. The only thing you have to watch out for with powders and the protein bars is all the extra ingredients that come with it, which aren't going to be as beneficial to you and your gut microbiome, as well as being a bit ultra processed really with some of those emulsifiers and the ingredients you find on the packets. So if you can, try and get all your protein from your meals, the recommended sort of protein allowance, because there's enough there to keep you healthy and to keep you going. That's really all you need, unless you're sort of a high performance athlete or something, in which case you might want to use some powders. But
The other side with protein is if you're eating that 1 kilogram of body weight and you're nailing that every day and you're still feeling hungry, you could take that up a little bit, try the 1.1, the 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. It's about you, and this is where personalization is what you do at home. We'll give you the basic information. Somebody's asking about what to do when they're feeling really nauseous on those days and they can't eat, they're taking a GLP-1. I would say little foods, just whatever you can manage. Ginger is really good for nausea or can be beneficial for nausea. And actually just having small meals and don't race through the doses. It may even be that if you're having lots of days that you just can't face eating, we possibly recommend you reduce your dose back to the previous dose. Wouldn't you agree, Sanam?
yeah, we would normally say if you're really struggling to eat, that might be a too high dose for you. And if you are on the lowest dose and still struggling, you might want to just space those doses out so that not too spaced out. You can leave them up to sort of like a little bit longer, so not every 7 days, just while your body sort of adjusts to the actual GLP medications. But what you don't want is not being able to eat much at all. So that does indicate actually maybe a lower dose might be better for you. So definitely, Ruth.
Yeah. Somebody's asking about dairy. Not being very healthy, and is it something that people should avoid because of the fats? Actually, I think I'd go for the low fat dairy, not the no fat dairy. You do want a little bit of the fat, and actually there's some really interesting research about the role of calcium in weight loss being beneficial, and actually one of the most bioavailable forms of calcium will be from those dairy products, so it's really worth thinking about adding a little bit of dairy in if you can tolerate it and if you're happy to eat it. Yeah. Well, there's a really general question here. We'll come back to that if we have time. Drinking water, etc. Is it okay to have no added sugar squash, i.e. Robinson's? That's a great question. I'm going to dive in with this just because it's sort of like something we get asked loads. We really recommend that you don't have the diet sodas, the diet squashes, the no sugar varieties of drinks, just because unfortunately our body will get a message that it's having something sweet. So it's trickery. So what happens is our body has a message it's had something sweet. It will still have the same physiological response to that drink, even if it's got 0 calories, 0 sugar, and it's sort of like a diet enriched sort of product. So we say ideally no. Try those water drops. They are interesting. I've had a good look at the labels. I can't see anything that would be suggesting we shouldn't be drinking those. Um, Try adding fruit, just slices of fruit to water, or try the herbal teas. You can even drink those fruit and herbal teas cold. So you really see, and just if you really can't deal with that and you need to add that no sugar sort of squashes or cordials, then just go for the minimal amount and as dilute as possible.
You could also, I don't know if you've heard of those, Ruth, those sort of air up type bottles where it's a sensory play where you can smell it and then I think Boots have started selling those recently as well, where you can put that fruit flavor. That might be something. I mean, I've tried it, so it's a very personal thing, but
And
I
smell
found
is
that
so
quite good.
important. So I think that sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And- yeah.
Um, Cool. So somebody's asking about a low inflammation diet. Does this include whole grains? I would say just figure out for yourself whether the grains work in your body, see how whatever is going on in terms of that whole inflammatory response. You may know yourself what that is. It could be pain in your knees or in your joints. To see how you are. Maybe take those grains down to a really minimal. Some of us are better with less, so just see how you are. And all grains will have a different effect. So try out different grains and see how they sit with you. You will know by how your body is responding generally. Um, Somebody would like a video on how to inject them in Endurance pens. If you're a Boots Online customer, patient, then please email into the team on your messaging system and ask for that, and we will send you a link to how to take your medication. So I hope that helps. Somebody is saying that they are drinking a lot of sweet tea. They've managed to cut out Coke, so well done for doing that. That's a really positive, fantastic step, and for many people can be really challenging. So that's brilliant. You've read a medical journal about the direct link between chronic pain and sugar cravings. So that's really interesting. You've been reading that, so well done. What can you do to reduce your sort of over reliance on the taste of that sweet tea? I think that's what's going on here. Is it's what you enjoy, isn't it? You're used to that flavour. What can you do? Any thoughts, Anam? I've got a couple. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think I mean, if it's got, lower sugar content and then it's something you rely on and it's quite a comfort, then if you're having sweet tea with sugar, then that's probably not the best, option. But you've got to give yourself some credit when you're going from Coke to sort of sweet tea, I think, because that's a big win in itself. And actually, you've reduced a lot of that sugar content as it is anyway. But with sweet teas, a lot of them are more either fruit based, so they're either dried fruits and they are a little bit sweeter. But I don't know, Ruth, I would have thought they were okay too, as long as it's not sugar within those teas. But
I
if
think
you have a
if you're
different opinion,
adding sugar to a tea, then
yeah,
that's
if you're adding sugar, it's probably
okay. So if you're adding sugar to the tea, I know there are some people out in who are still adding a few teaspoons of sugar to their cups of tea. And then if they're drinking several cups a day, cumulatively,
mm,
then that's a lot of sugar. And at any one time, we only have the equivalent of something like 1 teaspoon of sugar in our blood. So actually, if you're drinking a drink with excess sugar in, your body is going to have to work really hard to store that sugar. And it just really will destabilize your ability to lose weight. There's just no getting around it. I wonder if you've tried some sugar alternatives or actually just reducing your sugar down. So you just gradually, by even a quarter of a teaspoon, you gradually nudge it down. Our taste buds are we're able to change them bizarrely. So we are used to a taste of something. That's what we're used to. So that's what we expect. But we can change our taste buds. So you can just re-educate your taste to enjoy that tea without sugar. Eventually, it is a long process. So just wean it down, wean yourself.
yeah. And I was thinking even like, obviously I thought you meant fruit teas, so I didn't realize actual sugar added to teas. Yes, I know. But whether a different type of tea. So if you want to try something a bit more like, peppermint tea, which not as many people want sugar within peppermint tea. So if you want to try different teas, and whether it's a habitual habit that you have, which I probably have, is just drinking lots of tea all the time, that's probably something people associate either tea with sugar and biscuits. So you might want to try and gradually get away from that and try different teas, which you can still enjoy, but actually you might not need that sugar content in there. So it just might be just trying different sort of like teas that might help with that sweetness that you might feel, like either maybe cinnamon in tea or something, which will give that added bit of sweetness.
Yeah, exactly. And also I was thinking about things like agave syrup. You could potentially add a small amount um, in into the sort of like and see how you get on with that. Just maybe an alternative, or even a little bit of vanilla essence is very sweet. So you could swap things around and see how that works for you. Somebody's asking if quark is healthy. Yeah, I believe it to be healthy. It's not, I don't think it's actually on our food plan. So we could add it at some point when we do a rerun of that. But yes, I would add that in as an option. How do we rank purple sweet potatoes versus regular potatoes? Okay, so sweet potatoes have a slightly lower glycemic effect than old potatoes, and new potatoes have the least glycemic effect. So, in terms of hierarchy, your new potatoes come first, then your sweet potatoes, and then your old potatoes. And with the hierarchy in the size portions, you probably want to be thinking about two or three of the little new potatoes as salad potatoes. So, there's not huge amounts. just have it for the pleasure, enjoy that moment of eating it, and hopefully that's helpful. So great. Somebody's asking about fibre. So there are different types of fibre. The general guidelines are in terms of fibre that we have 30 grams of fibre a day. Actually, it's very interesting when you look at your fibre, how that adds up. So fruits and vegetables will bring fibre, as will things like the whole grain rices and the oats. The soluble fibre turns into a gel when it's added to water. So it really helps in terms of slowing down our food passage through our system, really helps to boost those beneficial gut bacteria, helps to regulate blood glucose. So we really want to be including that. So things like oats and barley and the chia seeds, the husks on those, and also the flax seeds, beans and lentils. So those are things that we really want to be thinking about in terms of our beautiful gut microbiome. Let's see, what else have we got? Are there any foods that you think are nutritious? We'll come back to that. Somebody on their third week doing well, of taking Manjaro, doing well. However, the feed noise does seem to come back in the last couple of days and the last week. Will that continue, Sanam?
Yeah, the food noise, it depends if you're, is this, it was sorry, is the person on medication or?
Manjaro.
Oh, Manjaro. Okay. Yeah. The food noise, it could be that you need a dosage adjustment again. So the food noise might have come back. But again, that's a natural response for your body trying to make you eat that food again and gain that weight again. So you almost feel like your body's working against you to try and lose that weight. So it is quite a natural response that that food noise will come back. And it might be that you need to increase your dose. So you might want to consider that as long as you're not sort of having any side effects to your current dosage or anything. You might want to try and consider eating that, maybe eating that, but maybe try changing what you're eating again as well and implementing different foods. So if you're maybe not eating as many proteins or something, which will help with that sort of fullness feeling and that food noise that you might get. You get that food noise as well when you get the spikes in your sugar levels, depending on what you're eating. So have maybe another look and adjust what you're eating, before maybe even try and increase your dose, and then see if that helps and work with that from there, see where to go from there.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, so somebody's clarified that I think this is to do with the tea. So sorry, I can't see all of the questions now. We tend to sort of move them into a different space once we've talked through questions. But it sounds like actually it's the impact of that sugar that you're enjoying in your tea rather than the taste. So I wonder if that's to do with what we know with sugar is it can raise our level of dopamine, which is that reward substance in our brain that makes us feel lifted in our mood and a little bit happier. So perhaps it's about finding something else that gives you that dopamine boost. So actually moving can give you a dopamine boost. Celebrating, sort of like patting yourself on the back for doing something good, talking to a friend, just anything that makes you feel good can give you that dopamine boost. And it's amazing when you look at the science around sugar and dopamine, they do suggest that sugar can be almost as addictive as some of the street drugs just because of that whole dopamine effect. So really think about where you can get your dopamine from. For many people, exercise can be a good switch. For some of us, that's not always easy. Um, Great. So we've done that. I read about sugar exacerbating pain. Have found omega-3 helps. That's really good to hear. Well done. Okay, let's have a look in the chat box, Sanam, and see what we have yet to pick up on and cover. We've got a few minutes left, so thank you. Fresh lemon and honey with water is a good replacement for tea, and you find you don't want biscuits with it. That is an absolute win, Roxanne. Thank you for sharing. Chamomile with honey is great. I get migraines and need sweet drink to recover. Anything recommended? Okay, that's really interesting. Some people, there's a really interesting book that's come out recently about migraines being related to things like salt, actually. It might be worth you having a look and seeing if you can find that. Sorry, I can't think of the name of it, but that really is interesting. High protein cottage cheese is good. How about wholemeal pasta? Yes, absolutely. Small amounts, don't need much of that, but enjoy it when you have it. Have it as a little side aspect of your plate. Um, cool.
Got one about recipe books or kits. I'm not sure which ones you maybe referring to. You can get some home deliveries of that might be quite good if you're struggling with time and trying to sort of plan food. So if you are meal planning, it might be a good idea to get those deliveries and whether you shop online and actually plan those foods. So if the box that you're getting delivered doesn't have what you're looking for and doesn't follow the sort of like the plan for weight loss for you, I'd probably suggest either ordering from somewhere where either do it as an online shop and actually list out the foods that you want in there. So adjust it to yourself rather than having a box sort of come every week where you're getting the full nutritious benefits and stuff. So that might be an idea. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there are some nice recipe deliveries. There are also a couple of deliveries that just bring the sort of like herbs and sauces in. So they're an option. You just have your own basic ingredients, but you add those herbs and sauces for flavor. They can be really useful to consider. So, um, so they can be helpful. I think it's all about really where you're at. Somebody's saying they're celiac as well, so grains are quite difficult. So you can't be thinking about things like buckwheat, which is a really nice grain. That is something you can have as a celiac. I noticed that you said that you can't have rice either, so it does make it quite limited. The other thing to look at is quinoa, which is a really nice protein-rich grain. So that may be something to consider bringing in. And then, maybe for some reason your body is just not particularly happy with those grains. So really think about what you can be having instead. I've made some really nice buckwheat pancakes in the past. And the other, I don't know if you're able to have oats, but you can buy gluten-free oats. So they would be something that you may be able to bring in as well. There's some really nice recipes that you can consider. I hope that's helpful. Somebody's asking if there's a social channel you can join. We don't have one at the moment. I have heard a rumor that that might change next year, but watch this space. If there is, we'll let you know. Somebody say, Gareth, you've put this. I don't usually eat until lunch. I don't really feel hungry, but I'm always able to eat. I'm vegetarian, so mainly eat eggs, vegetables, and fruit, but do have a sweet tooth. So do tend to eat chocolates and sweets every day. Is that where you're going wrong? I should have mentioned I'm 72. Does it get harder to lose weight as you get older? Gosh, lots of questions.
I think generally your body in hormonal levels changes as you get older anyway, so it can become a little bit harder. You might need different types of foods as you get older to lose that weight. But I think the sugar and sweets every day is probably setting you back a little bit. So I'd probably say, you could do a step-by-step approach. So it doesn't mean just completely cut out sugars tomorrow. So you can gradually either start eating maybe fruits instead of sugars and then gradually trying to adjust your diet so it becomes in what you want it to be and what it should be when you're looking at weight loss. And at 72, I'd also say obviously protein is so important as well, just to keep that muscular strength up. And as you get older, those muscles do wear away, more so than in the younger population. So it's really important you do focus on that protein within your diet, and that should help with that sort of sweet tooth that getting those highs and lows and stuff of that sugars as well. So don't know anything else to add, Ruth, or
Yeah, I think it's just, really make sure you're doing everything you can to support your muscle mass, so the protein and a little bit of resistance exercise, even if it's lifting some baked bean cans or downloading those Boots Online Doctor videos could be really helpful because they're sort of they have different stages for where you are in terms of your movement. So it's really suitable for everyone at any age. And it will meet you wherever you are in terms of that journey. So that's really important. I think it can become harder to lose weight, but I think that also is also about your own personal weight loss history. From what I understand and what I've read and from people I've worked with, it can be really more challenging if you haven't done this whole keeping your muscle mass working for you. So if your body composition changes every time you lose weight and you regain weight, if you've gone through that yo-yo cycling pattern a few times, it can be that your body composition is much more leaning towards a higher fat composition. And that in itself can make weight loss much more challenging. So it is something you can change. So it is about following that sort of core meal plan or the GLP-1 meal plan is about doing those little bits of resistance exercise 2 or 3 times a day. It's about being hydrated and getting that protein in. So for the person who doesn't love protein and would rather not eat anything, we really, really hope you can find something that you can start with because we know all of the science absolutely underpins how important that is. So please have a look and see if you can find something that you can just get used to. One thing, that's all. Start with one. And then once you're used to that, see if you can find something else that you can move on to. Somebody's mentioned that they're having protein powders and that's working for them and they're avoiding the ones with sugar in. So thank you for sharing that. Great. Sweet potatoes, we've answered. Is there anything? I agree with drinking water as this is key. I think this have been maybe have been my problem this month, not drinking enough water. So great. Good to have that reflection. So well done, Sal. It's always good to think through what's gone well for you and what perhaps you need to refocus on. So any last comments or thoughts from you, Sanam? Thank you so much for being with us today. We've loved having you here. It's
And
been
it's nice to hear some of your sort of, there's loads of struggles and don't feel like, because you're struggling, you're not succeeding. It's little steps sometimes. So little steps and going towards that sort of eating plan that you're looking for, the perfect eating plan for you.
yeah.
And I think that's key as well.
Find the things that work for you. We are going to be back next week. We have a feedback link for you, which we would like to share, Gareth, if you don't mind doing that. Just for any feedback you'd like to give us based on today's webinar or anything you'd like to see us bring for you in 2026, we'd be very pleased to try and meet your needs and create more resources. And yeah, we love your questions. It's what actually makes these sessions so interesting for all of us, everyone here, including Sanam, Gareth, and myself. We love really trying to support you as much as we can. Gareth, if you have you shared the sign up for next week's webinar as well? I don't know if you have or haven't seen, so thank you. Here's a feedback link. It's in the chat box for anybody who wants to take a couple of minutes to do that. So thank you. And do join us next week if you have time. We know it's a busy time of year. If you can spare an hour and it's beneficial to you, do come along. We'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much to Sanam and to Gareth for all of your help today. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.
Bye.